is Craig Roggow, and I'd like to thank you for joining me in this video. Before we get into the subject matter, I'd like to just identify how I've organized this video. You will notice PowerPoint slides being interjected, and those are simply to hit the talking points a little more succinctly and give you something to follow. As I identify the slides, and let's jump right into that, the next slide here we'll see is the multimedia format. You'll be able to go back, should you choose, to the actual web site, download the PowerPoint, or review this video again, and actually go into greater detail with regards to the references and so forth. And you can see that here in this multimedia slide that I'm showing you, which is 1, 2, and 3. 1 being the blog posting or publishing. The other, number 2, is to the link, and then 3 will be actually where I'm also posted on YouTube. And if you'd like to take a look at YouTube, if you've got an account there, you can simply type into YouTube, Best Practice Companies in International Business, Craig Roggow, and I'm sure I'll pop right up, and you can take a look at this video through that means as well. So with that, let's get started and realize as well, this video and the time frame that it is, that my intention is simply to hit the high points of this entire study, and again, you can go back to the blog publishing for greater detail. So with that in mind, this next slide, introduction, let's kind of organize the study itself. We find that international businesses are such that some are actually highly respectable, and others have more or less been tainted in the process of going international. And international businesses have been around for a long time, going from one continent to the other. But since the 1950s, with the increase in transportation and telecommunications and so forth, there's really been an explosion. So at this point, analyzing these companies' best practices, it really is a jump start to companies that are going international, because they can learn from some of the mistakes and some of the successes of these best practice companies. So with that in mind, let's identify that truly business internationally means that the company is successful more than likely, and that they're able to take their products globally. In doing so, we find that there really is an exemplar framework for social responsibility that develops within that path to really make them successful. And we find that international businesses are really strongly associated with excellent platforms for ethics. So they're not looking to go into a foreign country for exploitation. They're actually going into these foreign companies to increase their market share, but also to broaden the appeal for their actual products and company itself. So as I mentioned, there really is an advantage for newer emerging multinationals now to take a look at some of the structures of these older, if you will, multinationals that are already and have been internationally developing for quite some time. With that, I'd like to just identify here, really a thesis of this particular study is going to be based on 2 best practice companies, and in identifying those here for you, I'll actually give you my thesis sentence or statement, and that is that Microsoft and Procter Gamble are truly characterized by exceptional initiatives that are not only aimed at enhancing their business growth, but also enhancement of humanity. So that really is a distinguishing factor for multinational companies, and we're going to take 2 of the premier ones here and go through that study. If we take a look at the next slide, we'll identify the actual objectives of this particular posting or this publishing. And if you go back to the blog again, you'll be able to see that. But what I'd like you to be able to take away from this study is that I want to explain what these best practices do within international business to see what really sets them apart. I'm going to, in the process, be defining the similarities between both Procter & Gamble and Microsoft. And I'm going to describe their differences, and I'm going to critique these 2 companies. And then lastly, I'm going to implement these best practices, or show you how you would implement such practices and what would make your implementation successful within the arena of best practices for international development and success. So with that in mind, let's jump to the next slide. And we see that starting right off here, what some of the best practice attributes of Procter & Gamble are. Well, first of all, this multinational is really a pertinent example of international business. I mean, it really is the cream of the crop, if you will, as far as how international business has evolved, and really what their focus is, again, not only on their own business development, but increasing their awareness that in humanity in general is important as their company grows. So with that, you'll see that this is a very influential player in the global economy. All of us have heard of Procter & Gamble. We're aware of their products, their vast array of products, in fact, and know that they're virtually on every continent and in numerous companies, both from a manufacturing standpoint and a distributing standpoint. And we'll also see that they have hired people throughout the globe, and literally thousands of people have been employed and have realized financial benefit from this particular company. Moreover, we really see that the company's hierarchy is committed toward the enhancement of human welfare through different initiatives. The initiatives are not solely based on revenue generation, but, as I mentioned, the promotion of people's well-being. The company is recognized for its unique approach to cultural diversity. This business hires people from all walks of life without discriminating race or background. And that really is important as you're going into new cultures, for those people to see that you're willing to give them an opportunity to grow financially and professionally as well. So let's take a look now at the best practice company, Microsoft. Well, we all are very aware of Microsoft and the evolution in the United States, but they've evolved through the world as well. This is a highly profitable entity, even though maybe they've been beat up over the last number of years and have received a lot of competition. They really are still very profitable around the globe and in various countries. As we know, they specialize in computer technology, and they also are an employer of thousands. Now, what sets Microsoft apart from some of the other companies out there is that the founder, which I'm sure we're all aware is Bill Gates, him and his wife have been very, very influential in various charities. So Bill and Melinda have a number of different charities, which we'll discuss in just a moment, but that really has set them apart and really given them, if you will, an entree to the world as far as their true intentions with the success that they have had with Microsoft as a business itself. Let's take a look at the similarities, though, between Procter & Gamble and Microsoft. So we can see again what these best practice companies do to set them apart from, let's just say, strictly germane business, make a profit, and get what you can and get out. That really is not their intention. Their intention is for the long haul, and arguably or obviously they've been successful in what they've done, so it gives them that ability to do that, whereas newer companies maybe don't have quite the resources to be philanthropic at the onset. But Microsoft and Procter & Gamble really are what they preach in a lot of these aspects. Now, there's a lot of problems with them too. We'll go through some of their, we'll critique them if you will, but let's take a look at the similarities first. These companies are both associated, again, with excellent platforms for cultural integration within their respective workforces. So from what I can read and from what I've studied, there really is a conscious effort not to discriminate and to include the various communities that they go into as part of their workforce and management. They both have excellent standards of business ethics, and that really is permeated through their managements. Both companies have strongly emphasized growth through developing countries. Now, of course, some of that's self-serving in that these new countries that they can go into, there's huge market shares, but nevertheless there's a lot of work, and there needs to be an investment in human capital within those arenas too. So we find that, again, highlighting the excellent code of conduct for their respective employees is important. And those guidelines must be maintained through the entire organization, not just corporately, but through the local levels, identifying that the interaction with the customers and employees really are sincere and germane to the equal opportunity, if you will, through their various companies. They have extensive market shares in their respective industries. They really, as a whole, don't seek to suppress smaller scale competitors in those host countries. Again, there's exceptions, and some of these companies have over the years and recently been involved in much more competition, and they've had to resort to different tactics, especially in the United States, in order to maintain market share with their boards and with the stock market and so forth. But as a whole, they're more focused on their development than they are just crunching the little guy. Now let's take a look at some of the differences between Procter & Gamble and Microsoft. Procter & Gamble has a more elaborate blueprint for environmental sustainability than Microsoft does. And we would also identify that Procter & Gamble literally sets aside millions of dollars towards environmental conservation. Now, Microsoft, on the other hand, is much more conscious of charitable activities and children and allowing kids to get education and so forth. So they're a bit different focus. Again, we obviously know they're in different industries as far as what their products are, and this is again what distinguishes them and then qualifies them for best practice companies within international business and allows them to integrate with other communities and countries. So again, let's take a look at, we touched maybe on a couple of the criticisms or the critiques, but let's critique them specifically. Okay, so if we were to critique Microsoft, we would identify that literally Microsoft has not really devoted adequate resources towards the environmental initiatives. And then in fact, in Thailand they've received criticism recently over some of their plants and the green gas effects and some of the labor issues and so forth in some of these other countries. So Microsoft has some work to do in those areas. Now, apart from environmental sustainability, is also essential for multinationals to diversify their social responsibility. That's just a given. They must take a look at the needs of the humanity within the areas that they're actually marketing and selling products in order to, if you will, continue that best practice. There is a need to focus on alleviation of suffering around the world, and they do have the means in a lot of respects to make a big difference in that regard. Now, while these two best practice companies in international business have excellent frameworks for corporate responsibility overall, which we've already discussed, there are several areas, and we just hit on some of those now. So keep those in mind as you go back through this study of my blog publishing, and it will continue to, I guess, reverberate the importance of these companies not only making money in these areas, but also being responsible. If we take a look at the social responsibility again, we find that both of them really are based on stipulations that they'll enhance their standings as best practice companies literally by focusing on the people in these different communities. On the part of Procter & Gamble specifically, there's a need to focus on the alleviation of suffering, maybe a little bit more specifically around the world. I'm going to give you an example. They actually have the capacity to produce unique products literally for breastfeeding mothers, and there are third world countries where this would make a huge difference. Now, as they actually, take some of these challenges and move forward with them, they need to also be cognizant of the fact that there's marketing, I guess, opportunity based on their philanthropic or their humanity reach out. However, if they commercialize it too much, it kind of defeats the purpose and makes them look self-serving. So that's one area that that they can, they can focus on, but don't use it solely as a promotional mechanism. Now, both multinationals are able to greatly enhance their standings as best practice companies by continuing the path that literally they're both on still. So if we were taking a look now at implementing best practices, we see that the successful implementation of best practices in international business must be based on a comprehensive strategic plan. It just will not happen by itself. Companies in their own means will simply look to be as profitable as they can. Now, what happens with these more matured companies is they see that in order to do that, they must invest in these other areas. Well, in some aspects they can be self-serving. It really is a need. Now, you might have newer companies coming in that don't have that vision or that foresight. They may pay for it again with reputation and be seen as opportunistic and as using the people, and they may not do as well long term. But it's fundamentally really essential that all employees of the international corporation to work in accordance with the stipulation of the code of ethics, as we talked about. Nepotism and cronyism is pretty easy to see, and it isn't viewed positively from the host company or from the parent company overall or long term. If we summarize what we've seen in this study and take a look at it, we see that the company's relevance to this study's best practice, both Microsoft and Procter Gamble, can be depicted, of course, in numerous ways as we take a look at them and look at the things they do well, the things that maybe they could do better. But it really, some things really do stand out, and in a highlight again, it's that Microsoft has been very, very involved in charities with the Bill and Melinda Foundation, and Procter & Gamble have been very focused on the environmental sustainability. But regardless, both of them have been seen as really socially responsible, and really have seen as a benefit to humanity, specifically to the areas that they've gone into to actually market their products. And this is important for them in order to sustain that awareness that they really are truly best practice companies in international business. So again, I hope this has been helpful for you. The next slide here brings you back again to the blog publishing, where you can take a look at the study in greater detail in written format, and then you can take a look at this, if you will, this video again, or even download the PowerPoint presentation that I'm interjecting in between as my talking points. The next slide here just simply identifies the references that I've used in this analysis, and you're sure welcome to go through in greater detail and probably find some more helpful information if this is your subject that you're actually researching yourself. So with all this, I thank you again for visiting me on this video, and I hope that it was helpful in learning about best practice companies in international business. Again, my name is Craig Roggow. It has been created and directed and narrated by myself. Again, thank you. Bye for now.